Imagine sitting at your daughter's wedding, your heart full of pride, wearing your best dress, ready to celebrate one of the happiest days of your life. You smile as you watch Jessica laugh with her friends, her excitement glowing. You think about all the sacrifices you made to give her a good life, all the years of hard work and late nights, and you feel a quiet pride. Today is supposed to be perfect. But then, it happens. Ryan, Jessica's fiancé, walks over with a smirk. He grabs your chair and pulls it away before you can sit down. The entire room falls silent. Guests stop talking. Some gasp. Others whisper. All eyes are on you. You stumble slightly, barely catching yourself, but the humiliation hits like a sharp blow. Heat rushes to your face, and your chest tightens. For a moment, you freeze, shocked. You had never imagined your daughter's fiancé could be so disrespectful, so cruel in public. Your mind races. Why would he do this? Did Jessica see it? Your heart sinks when you catch her smiling awkwardly, trying not to react. You feel betrayed. This isn't just an accident or a misunderstanding. This is intentional. He wants everyone to see you as weak, unimportant, someone to be mocked. You take a slow, deep breath to calm yourself. You look around the room. The guests are staring, some uncomfortable, others trying not to laugh. You realize in that moment that this is not just about a chair. This is about control, about power, and about showing who he thinks belongs in the family and who doesn't. You are supposed to be invisible, ignored, replaced by his arrogance. But inside, something ignites. A mix of anger and resolve. You refuse to let this define you. You refuse to show tears or let shame take over. You straighten your shoulders and walk past him, ignoring the murmurs. You feel eyes on you, but instead of fear, there is determination building. You will not let this humiliation break you. Your mind begins racing, not with panic, but with plans. You think about all the years you worked, all the ways you helped Jessica and even Ryan when he needed it. And now, after everything, he treats you like this? You realize that appearances can be deceiving, and people can show their true colors in a single act. Today, he has revealed himself. And in that quiet, powerful moment, you decide, this is not over. This betrayal will not define the rest of your life. You will find a way to reclaim your dignity, to teach Ryan and even Jessica a lesson about respect, without losing yourself. Today may have started with humiliation, but it will not end that way. Today is the beginning of something much bigger, the moment you decide to take control of your story. After the wedding incident, Claire couldn't stop thinking about everything that had led to this moment. She remembered the countless times she had gone out of her way for Jessica. She had worked long hours to make sure Jessica had the best schools, the nicest clothes, and every opportunity she could afford. College tuition, summer programs, even small things like textbooks and tutoring, Claire had quietly handled it all without ever asking for thanks. And then there was Ryan. She remembered how, years ago, he had struggled to keep his small business afloat. Claire had loaned him money without hesitation, helping him pay bills and cover unexpected expenses. She had done it quietly, without making a scene, because she believed in giving people a chance. She thought Ryan was grateful. She thought Jessica would see the effort and appreciate it. But looking back now, the memories felt heavy. She realized they hadn't appreciated her at all. Ryan acted entitled, confident that he could walk over her without consequence. And Jessica, her own daughter, had often chosen Ryan's side, even when she saw Claire helping him. She remembered small moments, Jessica laughing at Ryan's jokes at Claire's expense, ignoring Claire's advice, or brushing off her feelings. Each memory now felt like a small betrayal stacked on top of the humiliation from the wedding. Claire's heart ached, not just from Ryan's disrespect, but from the realization that her daughter valued Ryan's approval more than hers. The thought was like a quiet stab, more painful than any public embarrassment. She had given so much of herself, sacrificed so many of her own dreams, and still, it seemed invisible to the people she loved most. Despite the pain, Claire held herself together in front of the guests. She smiled politely, answered questions with calm words, and acted as if nothing had happened. Pride kept her upright, but inside, her emotions swirled. She felt the sting of betrayal, the sharp edge of disappointment, and the heavy weight of being unrecognized by those she cared about most. Her mind wandered over all the little ways she had been taken for granted. The time she stayed up all night helping Jessica finish a college project. The quiet support she gave Ryan when he was unsure of himself. The sacrifices she had made, often unnoticed. And now, after all of it, she had been publicly humiliated while her daughter looked the other way. But through the hurt, a new feeling began to emerge: clarity. Claire saw the truth of their characters now, without the filter of love and hope that had blinded her before. Ryan's arrogance and Jessica's misplaced loyalty were clear. She realized she didn't have to accept their treatment. She didn't have to stay silent or allow them to think she could be walked over. In that quiet reflection, Claire decided she would not let this betrayal define her. She would find a way to protect herself, to make them understand the weight of their actions, and to reclaim her dignity. The pain would not control her. It would fuel her. And though her heart was broken, her resolve had never been stronger. After the ceremony, Claire slipped away from the crowded hall. The noise of laughter and music faded as she moved toward a quiet corner, a small balcony overlooking the garden. For a moment, she just leaned against the railing and let herself breathe. She needed to think, to feel, and to process what had just happened. Alone, her thoughts came quickly. She remembered all the times she had put everyone else first: Jessica, Ryan, even friends and family, while ignoring her own needs. She had set aside her own comfort, her own pride, her own happiness, always believing that caring for others mattered more. And now, after all those years of giving, she had been humiliated in front of people she cared about, treated as if she didn't exist. The memory of Ryan pulling her chair away still burned in her mind. It wasn't just rude, it was deliberate. Every detail came back sharply: the smug expression on his face, the gasps from the guests, the awkward glance from Jessica. Claire felt anger rise deep in her chest, hot and steady. This wasn't something she could ignore. She realized she would not be silenced, would not let someone treat her like a shadow in her own life. The anger mixed with clarity. She understood now that being quiet, being polite, had allowed others to underestimate her. They assumed she would stay in the background, always patient, always forgiving. But that assumption was about to be challenged. For the first time, a plan began to form in her mind, not out of impulsive rage, but careful thought. She would show them that disrespecting her came with consequences. Claire's eyes scanned the garden below. She imagined scenarios where Ryan and Jessica would have to face the truth of their actions. Small ideas at first, but each one sparked another, building like a chain she could follow to the end. She thought about exposing lies, pointing out arrogance, revealing truths they had ignored for years. She wanted them to understand, to feel a fraction of the shock and hurt they had caused her. And it wasn't about revenge for revenge's sake. It was about respect. Claire wanted her dignity restored, her role in her family acknowledged, and her own voice heard. She wouldn't let anger make her reckless, but she would let it fuel her resolve. This moment, painful as it was, had ignited something inside her. By the time she returned to the hall, Claire felt a quiet strength. Her shoulders were straight, her face calm, but her mind was sharp. She knew the journey ahead would take patience and strategy. The humiliation was just the beginning. What came next would change the way Ryan and even Jessica saw her forever. And as she stepped back into the crowd, she silently promised herself one thing: no one would underestimate Claire Thompson again. After the wedding, Claire knew she couldn't let the situation go. The humiliation had opened her eyes, and she realized that reacting with anger alone would not solve anything. She needed a plan, something careful and deliberate. She began thinking quietly about Ryan and Jessica, about the life they were building together, and where cracks might lie. Claire started paying closer attention. She noticed the little things Ryan said in conversations, the way he avoided certain topics, the excuses he made for small failures. She remembered the loans she had given him years ago and wondered how he had used them. Claire began keeping mental notes, piecing together what she already knew and filling in gaps she hadn't noticed before. She wanted a clear picture, not just assumptions. She also watched Jessica. It pained her to see her daughter so blind to Ryan's flaws, so eager to defend him. But Claire realized that Jessica's loyalty made it even more important to approach this carefully. Her goal wasn't to humiliate Ryan in public right away. She wanted Jessica to see the truth herself, to understand who Ryan really was, without feeling attacked. That required patience, observation, and subtle action. Every detail mattered. Claire quietly asked questions about Ryan's work, about his financial decisions, about small personal choices he had made. She paid attention to what was consistent and what didn't add up. She remembered times when she had helped him and realized some promises were never kept, some responsibilities ignored. Claire began connecting dots that had seemed small at the time, seeing patterns she hadn't noticed before. At home, she made notes. She listed the ways Ryan had taken advantage of her generosity, ways he had shown arrogance or dishonesty. She noted Jessica's blind spots, the moments when her daughter had defended him at Claire's expense. This was not about anger, it was about clarity. She wanted the truth to be undeniable when the right moment came. Even in casual conversations with friends and relatives, Claire found ways to learn more without raising suspicion. A mention of Ryan's business, a question about their home finances, small details about their habits, each piece added to the bigger picture. Claire felt a sense of control she hadn't felt in years. Instead of being humiliated and powerless, she was collecting knowledge, turning observation into quiet power. The plan was forming in her mind, step by step. No one could rush it, the timing had to be perfect. Every subtle action would build toward a moment when Jessica could see Ryan clearly, and when he could no longer take her generosity and patience for granted. The idea of justice, careful and deliberate, grew stronger than any fleeting anger. For the first time since the wedding, Claire felt a sense of calm determination. She wasn't acting out of spite. She was acting out of principle, for herself and for her daughter. And when the time came, Ryan and Jessica would understand that underestimating Claire Thompson was a mistake they would never forget. Over the next few weeks, Claire noticed Ryan's behavior more clearly. Even at small family gatherings, he acted entitled. He interrupted conversations, dismissed other people's opinions, and made jokes at someone else's expense. It wasn't shocking to Claire anymore, she had seen this side of him before. What surprised her was how openly he flaunted it in front of Jessica and the family, as if everyone was supposed to admire him for it. Claire knew she couldn't confront him directly without causing drama. Instead, she began subtle interventions. During conversations, she would gently redirect attention when Ryan tried to dominate the discussion. She asked questions that made people think, small remarks that highlighted contradictions in his stories. Nothing aggressive, nothing obvious, just enough to plant seeds of doubt. Sometimes, she would praise Jessica's independent thinking in front of Ryan, hinting that her daughter didn't need to agree with everything he said. Other times, she casually mentioned topics that revealed gaps in Ryan's logic or decisions. Claire wanted the truth to surface naturally, without a fight. The idea wasn't to embarrass him publicly yet, it was to make him feel the subtle pressure of his arrogance. Jessica noticed the small tension between her mother and fiancé. At first, she frowned, feeling uncomfortable, but she dismissed it. She was loyal to Ryan, confident in his character, and unwilling to question him. Claire understood her daughter's perspective. She didn't want to force Jessica to see the truth too soon. Patience was key. She would guide her daughter gently toward realization rather than push her. Even with this careful approach, Claire felt the emotional tug-of-war inside her. On one hand, she loved Jessica deeply and wanted to protect her from disappointment. On the other hand, she was fueled by a desire for justice, a need to make Ryan understand that he couldn't treat her or anyone else with disrespect. Balancing love and determination was exhausting, but Claire had learned over the years to control her emotions and think strategically. At family dinners and small gatherings, Claire's subtle interventions began to have small effects. Some relatives raised their eyebrows at Ryan's behavior. Some friends started asking questions that he couldn't easily answer. Claire felt satisfaction in seeing that her quiet influence was starting to work. She realized that she didn't need confrontation to have power, patience and observation were enough. Still, she remained careful. She didn't want Ryan to suspect she was plotting or paying attention to every detail. Every action had to be measured, precise. The stakes were high. If Jessica caught on too soon, she might defend Ryan blindly. If Ryan realized he was being tested, he could become defensive or aggressive. Claire had to maintain a careful balance, like walking on a tightrope. By the end of each event, Claire often left quietly, thinking over the conversations, noting what worked and what didn't. Each interaction was another piece of the puzzle, another step toward exposing Ryan's arrogance and helping Jessica see the truth. Claire felt a growing confidence in her plan, knowing she was moving closer to the moment when justice would come, without losing herself or her dignity. Claire's quiet observations began to reveal more than just arrogance. Over time, she started noticing inconsistencies in Ryan's stories about his finances and business. Small details that didn't add up, loans he claimed were for work but had vague purposes, bills paid late despite promises, and sudden unexplained expenses. Her intuition told her there was more beneath the surface. She decided to look closer. Without drawing attention, Claire checked documents she had access to, quietly reviewed bills, and asked subtle questions that encouraged Ryan to reveal more than he intended. What she found shocked her. Ryan had taken loans in Jessica's name without her knowledge, kept debts hidden, and engaged in business deals that were risky and poorly planned. He had put Jessica's name and credit at risk while presenting himself as responsible and trustworthy. Claire felt a mix of anger and satisfaction. She had suspected his arrogance might hide deeper problems, but seeing the proof gave her a new sense of empowerment. She realized she wasn't just a victim of humiliation, she had the tools to protect herself and her daughter. Every piece of evidence she uncovered strengthened her resolve. Despite the discoveries, Claire remained calm in front of family and friends. At gatherings, she smiled politely, spoke casually, and acted as if nothing had changed. She didn't want Ryan to suspect that she was aware of his actions. Every conversation, every glance, every reaction was measured. Claire knew the moment for confrontation would come, but it had to be perfectly timed. Patience was her ally. Meanwhile, Ryan began to notice subtle changes in her behavior. She no longer flinched at his arrogance, no longer laughed at his jokes, no longer hesitated when he spoke over her. Her calm confidence made him uneasy. The slight distance in her tone, the careful attention in her eyes, started to chip away at his bravado. For the first time, Ryan realized that Claire wasn't someone he could control or dismiss. This realization unsettled him. He began to test her with small provocations, insincere compliments, veiled insults, attempts to regain dominance, but Claire stayed composed. She responded politely, never giving him the satisfaction of an emotional reaction. Each failed attempt frustrated Ryan further, exposing cracks in the confident mask he usually wore. As the days went by, Claire's understanding of Ryan deepened. She saw that his arrogance had a limit and that it could be confronted strategically. She also saw Jessica's blind trust in Ryan as something that needed gentle but firm guidance. Every piece of evidence she gathered was not just proof, it was a tool to open Jessica's eyes when the time came. Claire felt a quiet thrill. She was no longer powerless. She had discovered the truth, maintained control in social situations, and begun to unsettle the man who had humiliated her. The tension was rising, and she could feel the story shifting. Ryan's arrogance was no longer untouchable, and Claire knew the moment to act would soon arrive. The balance of power was slowly tipping, and she was ready to take the next step. Claire knew it was time to plant the first seed of truth in Jessica's mind. She chose a quiet moment, just the two of them, away from the wedding chaos and family chatter. Claire began talking about a small incident that seemed minor on the surface but spoke volumes about Ryan's character. It was something simple, an example of his dishonesty and arrogance that Jessica had never fully noticed, just a small lie he had told to make himself look better. Jessica listened at first with a puzzled expression. She didn't want to believe it, brushing it off as unimportant. Ryan was the man she loved, the person she trusted, and Claire's words felt like an attack. Her loyalty to Ryan made her defensive, and she immediately tried to justify his behavior in her mind. Claire remained calm, patient, and gentle, letting the truth speak for itself. She didn't need to argue or raise her voice. The effect was subtle but powerful. Jessica's confidence in Ryan wavered, even if only slightly. She started asking herself questions she had never considered before. Why had he said that? Why had he acted that way? The tiny crack of doubt began to grow, quietly undermining her blind trust. Ryan, unaware of the conversation, began to notice the change. His usual arrogance faltered when he sensed tension around him. At a family dinner, he made a careless remark, expecting laughs or agreement, but Claire calmly pointed out a contradiction, phrasing it as a simple observation. The room went quiet, and Ryan's face shifted from smugness to irritation. Close family members noticed the change. They had always tolerated his overconfidence, but now they saw the first real sign of his flaws. Ryan tried to recover, making jokes and laughing nervously, but his confidence was gone. The careful mask he had maintained in front of everyone was cracking. Guests who had once admired his bravado now exchanged knowing looks. The arrogance he relied on to control situations no longer worked. Meanwhile, Jessica struggled with mixed emotions. She wanted to defend Ryan, but part of her couldn't ignore the truth that Claire had gently laid out. Confusion, guilt, and frustration filled her. She realized for the first time that her mother wasn't attacking her boyfriend without reason. Something deeper was at play, something important that she had ignored. The tension in the room was almost unbearable. Ryan's reaction, combined with Jessica's inner conflict, created an atmosphere thick with uncertainty. Claire watched carefully, her calm presence in sharp contrast to Ryan's cracking facade. She knew this was the turning point, the moment when truth began to shine through, when her patience and careful planning started to pay off. Claire felt a quiet satisfaction. She hadn't needed a dramatic confrontation or public humiliation. The smallest, undeniable truth was enough to start changing minds, to begin breaking the illusion Ryan had created. The story was shifting, and for the first time, the people around them could see that the arrogant fiancé wasn't as untouchable as he seemed. Claire's careful strategy was working, and the moment of ultimate confrontation and justice was getting closer with every passing day. After the wedding, the house was quieter than usual. Claire asked Jessica to sit with her in the living room, away from the noise of guests and family chatter. She needed to speak from the heart, to let her daughter understand the depth of what had happened and how it had affected her. Claire began gently, her voice steady but full of emotion. She told Jessica how hurt she had been when Ryan humiliated her in front of everyone. She explained how it wasn't just the chair incident, it was a culmination of years of being ignored, taken for granted, and disrespected. She spoke about her sacrifices, her patience, and the quiet support she had always given to both Jessica and Ryan, expecting nothing in return but respect. Jessica listened, shifting uncomfortably in her seat. At first, she felt defensive, wanting to protect Ryan and justify his behavior. But as her mother spoke, the words started to sink in. The gentle way Claire expressed her pain and disappointment made Jessica pause. She had never realized how deeply Ryan's arrogance and manipulation affected the people around him, especially her mother. Claire continued, emphasizing that her words came from love. She wasn't trying to attack Ryan, but to open Jessica's eyes to a reality she had ignored for too long. She told her daughter that loyalty and love shouldn't blind her to someone's true character, and that being respected and valued was not negotiable, no matter who you loved. Jessica's defenses began to crumble. She felt guilt for defending Ryan without question and anger at him for using her loyalty to mask his flaws. Memories surfaced, small lies, manipulative comments, excuses she had ignored. The truth became clear, Ryan had been controlling situations to make himself look better while she and her mother were expected to comply silently. Meanwhile, Ryan's arrogance, once so dominant, began to lose its effect. Family members had noticed the tension, the subtle cracks in his confident persona. He realized that his control over Jessica and the situation was slipping. The carefully maintained facade he relied on to impress others could no longer hold against Claire's quiet strength and the emerging awareness in Jessica. The conversation between mother and daughter was raw and honest. Claire did not yell or shame, she spoke with calm authority, letting her love and disappointment be felt without being overbearing. Jessica responded with tears, admitting she had been blind, that she had allowed Ryan's charm and ego to influence her judgment. By the end of their talk, the bond between Claire and Jessica had been tested but not broken. They were both shaken, but stronger for having faced the truth together. Jessica began to understand her mother's perspective, and Claire saw that her daughter was ready to make her own judgments, informed and aware. The emotional climax left the room heavy but real. Ryan could no longer rely on appearances or his usual charm. The mother-daughter relationship, once strained by miscommunication and loyalty conflicts, emerged stronger. They were no longer just reacting to events, they were prepared to confront what came next, together, with clarity and unity. Claire had spent weeks quietly gathering everything she needed. Now, the moment had come to reveal the truth. She invited Jessica and a few close family members to sit together in the living room, away from the distractions of the ongoing wedding celebrations. Ryan was present, confident as always, unaware of what Claire was about to do. Calmly, Claire began to lay out the facts. She spoke clearly, without anger, showing proof of Ryan's actions, loans taken in Jessica's name without her knowledge, debts he had hidden, and personal lies he had told to manipulate situations in his favor. Every piece of evidence was presented simply, leaving no room for denial. She didn't raise her voice or humiliate him in public, but the impact was immediate. Jessica's eyes widened as she listened. She began to see her fiancé in a new light, understanding the full extent of his manipulation and dishonesty. Questions she had ignored suddenly made sense. Every excuse Ryan had given, every casual lie he had told, now fell into place. The shock was visible on her face, but there was also a growing sense of clarity. Ryan's confident demeanor started to crumble. The subtle control he had always held over family conversations and situations began to slip. He tried to respond, to explain, to charm his way out, but the calm authority in Claire's voice, combined with clear evidence, left him powerless. For the first time, his arrogance was not enough to protect him. Jessica, finally able to see the truth, confronted Ryan directly. Her voice shook at first, a mix of anger and disappointment, but she spoke firmly. She demanded answers, calling out the lies and manipulations she had once defended. Ryan's attempts to justify himself only made the situation worse. Family members listened, their expressions changing as they realized Ryan's true character. Throughout the confrontation, Claire remained composed. She did not gloat, she did not shout, and she did not humiliate Ryan publicly. Instead, her quiet confidence and careful planning made the impact far more powerful. Ryan lost respect and trust in the eyes of those who mattered most. Without a public scene, without scandal, his image cracked irreparably. Jessica turned to her mother, tears in her eyes. She apologized for defending Ryan blindly, acknowledging the loyalty and selflessness Claire had shown all along. She admitted she had underestimated the wisdom and patience of her mother, realizing that Claire's love had guided every step, even when it had gone unnoticed. Claire felt a deep sense of satisfaction. This was the revenge she had sought, not cruelty or public embarrassment, but the restoration of her dignity and the exposure of the truth. She had protected herself and her daughter, held Ryan accountable, and done so with grace. The balance of power had shifted, and Claire knew she had won without compromising her values. By the end of the day, Ryan's arrogance had been checked, Jessica had gained clarity, and Claire had reclaimed her respect. She didn't need drama or confrontation to prove her strength, her careful strategy and unwavering patience had done it all. The family now understood who she truly was, and for the first time in a long time, Claire felt both justice and peace. After the confrontation with Ryan, Claire finally had a quiet moment to herself. Sitting in her favorite chair, she thought back over everything that had happened. The humiliation at her daughter's wedding, the anger she had felt, the long weeks of careful observation and planning, all of it came together in a way that left her both exhausted and proud. She realized how much strength it had taken to stay calm, to act with patience, and to plan her moves without letting emotions take control. Claire reflected on her journey. She had faced betrayal from someone she had trusted, seen her daughter defend the wrong person, and endured public embarrassment. But through it all, she had remained composed. She had turned every challenge into an opportunity, every insult into motivation, and every doubt into clarity. She felt a sense of peace knowing she had handled everything without compromising her dignity. Jessica entered the room quietly, her expression serious but soft. She sat beside her mother and took her hand. For the first time, she apologized fully, not just for the wedding incident, but for the months of blind loyalty to Ryan. She admitted she had been wrong to ignore the signs and had underestimated the wisdom and care of her mother. Claire listened, feeling a warmth she hadn't felt since before the wedding chaos began. The apology was more than words. It was a turning point in their relationship. Mother and daughter, once strained by misunderstandings and misplaced loyalty, now felt closer than ever. Jessica promised to be more thoughtful, to see people clearly, and to trust her own judgment in the future. Claire smiled, knowing that the bond they had fought to protect was stronger for the struggles they had endured together. Looking back, Claire understood the real lesson. True power did not come from anger or revenge alone. It came from composure, patience, and the ability to act strategically. By staying calm and careful, she had exposed Ryan, protected her daughter, and reclaimed her own respect, all without a single scene or public scandal. Her actions had spoken louder than any argument or confrontation could. Ryan, now exposed and stripped of his arrogance, could no longer control the narrative. His lies and manipulation had been revealed to those who mattered, and his reputation within the family was permanently damaged. Jessica had learned to see the truth, and Claire had proven her strength in a quiet but undeniable way. In that moment, Claire felt a profound sense of victory. Not a victory born of cruelty, but of wisdom, courage, and careful action. She had taken back control of her life and ensured that those who had tried to undermine her could no longer do so. She felt empowered, proud, and at peace. As she sat with her daughter, Claire realized something essential: respect, dignity, and strength were earned through patience and clarity, not confrontation. The wedding humiliation, Ryan's arrogance, and even the betrayal, all of it had led to this moment of triumph. Claire smiled, knowing she had emerged victorious, morally and emotionally, stronger than ever before.